Hello everyone, my name is EVOO and welcome to Cooking with the Coias. So glad you can join me because today we are going to make a very simple seafood risotto using just basic ingredients that hopefully you have at home right now so that you can make this delicious dish. Let's get started. Okay, so for this recipe I have got some seafood broth here, some fish stock that I made. I didn't have this 2 hours ago, but I have it now because today we're going to use shrimp and scallops. And when I cleaned the shrimp, all I did was I saved the shells of the shrimp and I added them to a pot, added some onions, some carrots, some celery, and then I added about 8 cups of water. I also added a little bit of saffron. I like to add some saffron just for a little bit of extra color and flavor. Put it on the stove and bring it to a boil, let it simmer, and add salt to taste. Boom, you got fish stock. Now, if you don't have fish stock for this recipe, I'm just going to turn that down. You can use chicken broth. Okay, so let's fire up our frying pan. As you probably noticed, I put some extra virgin olive oil in there. We're going to add about 3 tablespoons of butter, and we're going to melt that down. So I have my shrimp and my scallops right here, and we have about 400 grams of scallops and 400 grams of shrimp. And what I did was I dried the shrimp and the scallops just with a paper towel. Dry them as best you can, and then I sprinkled them with flour. Now I used semolina flour. You can use regular white flour, it's not a problem. I prefer to use semolina. I have semolina, so I use semolina. So all I did was dust them with some semolina flour, and now I'm going to melt down this butter in with the oil, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to lightly saute the shrimp and the scallops. So we'll melt this down. I don't deep fry with olive oil, but when I'm sauteing, I want, and because the oil is going to remain in this dish, I want the benefit of the olive oil and the taste of the olive oil. And remember, you can heat up olive oil up to 400 degrees before it hits a smoking point. So it's very, very fine to fry in it, especially this type of fry. Okay, let's start with our shrimp. We're going to fry up the shrimp first. Now, they don't take long, maybe 2 to 3 minutes per side, but I haven't seasoned them yet. So what I'm going to do, I have got here one of my favorite seasonings, Old Bay seasoning. And if you have Old Bay, by all means, please use it. If you do not have Old Bay seasoning, then just season with salt. Okay, let's add some Old Bay. That's going to give those shrimp just some real nice flavor. Like I say, we're going to cook these about 2 to 3 minutes per side. As they start to turn color, it's time to flip them. And you want that nice opaque color in the middle. You don't want to overcook them and make them rubbery. So that's why I say it's only 2 to 3 minutes per side. That's it. Most people overcook their shrimp. They don't have to be cooked that long. And I'm going to season the other side as well with some more of my Old Bay seasoning. Okay, that's it. Those are cooked. Put that down to low. We're going to take these out and we're going to just put them aside right now. So they're going to go aside. They're going to rest for a little while and they're going to come back later. Okay, let's put our heat back up to medium-high again. Let's put our scallops in there. And same procedure. We're going to lightly season them with our Old Bay seasoning. There we go. And again, they don't take long either. 2 to 3 minutes per side and they're done. Now, the reason why we're frying the seafood now in this pan and put it aside is we have now significantly flavored that oil and that butter with beautiful seafood flavor, and it's going to retain that flavor throughout our dish as opposed to adding the seafood later. You want to add it at this point right now so that we get all that beautiful flavor and seasoning in the pan. Okay, same thing with the scallops. When you see the color coming on the side, time to flip them. And if you noticed as well, scallops release a little bit of liquid. Even though we patted them dry, they still have liquid. and they release their liquid. And you know what? That's another reason why we want to fry our seafood now. I want that beautiful scallop liquid to remain in our dish, and that's going to, again, that's another tip for seasoning our seafood risotto, which makes for even better flavor. Down below we go. We do not want to overcook these. They are going to join our shrimp. Don't they look nice already? I know. It would be nice just to have a fish fry, a shrimp and scallop fry, but just think about all the flavor now that we're adding to our seafood risotto. So now we're going to put the heat back up to medium high. I've sliced up some onions. I like to slice them really thin and then chop them up, because the thinner the onions are, the better they cook up, and they almost kind of melt away. So we're going to just now saute these onions. Look at that. We're going to scoop up all those beautiful flavors, coat these onions. So now we want to cook the onion. We don't want to caramelize it, but we want them cooked. So, you know, about 3-4 minutes. So while our onion cooks away, I also have 2 tablespoons of freshly chopped parsley. I just picked this parsley outside from my herb garden, chopped it up into small little pieces, and we're going to just add that to our shrimp and scallops. Okay, so it's been about 3 minutes here, and they're cooking up nicely. This browning is not the browning of the onion, but rather it's the little bit of the residual of flour that we had left in there, which is giving that brown color, and that actually looks really nice. Okay, so at this point we can now add our risotto rice. Now for making risotto, you need risotto rice. This rice is carnaroli rice. You could also use arborio if you like, but carnaroli is, as I say, the king of the risotto rices. So, but again, arborio is also very good. You could use either or, but you definitely want to make sure that you get a risotto rice, typically from Italy. So all we want to do now that we've added it, we want to kind of fry this rice. I'm going to say we're kind of dry frying it. So we just kind of want to fry it and get it covered with all that flavored onion and juices. And we want to fry it for about a minute. We've got everything coated, and you notice a lot of the liquid has been absorbed. There's very little left here of oil and butter, as you can see here. Just a little bit left, but not much. So now it's time for magic ingredient number 1. That is vermouth. So white vermouth, dry vermouth. About a good 1/4 to 1/2 cup. There's about a 1/4. There's about a 1/2 right there. Oh boy. Okay. Now, if you do not have vermouth, what you could do is use white wine. In fact, most recipes call for white wine, but those of you who know Laura and I, we always use dry white vermouth, because that's one of our secrets for adding phenomenal flavor to any risotto, not just seafood risotto, any risotto. Okay, but again, dry white wine, perfectly fine. So, at this point, we're going to let this cook down. We want that wine, or that, not the wine, we want the vermouth to be absorbed. And then once it's absorbed, we're going to start adding our broth, 1 ladle spoon at a time. This is going to take now, from this point on, about 20 minutes for that risotto to cook, and it's going to take a lot of constant stirring. That's how you cook risotto. You want to slowly release those starches from the risotto rice and let them cook up nicely. So, okay, again, I have a fish stock here, as I mentioned, I made earlier, and I salted my fish stock. So there's 2 liters of stock here, and I added 2 teaspoons of salt, but you would add salt to taste, whatever you prefer. And if you like more salt, you can add salt right now to your risotto, and again, it's just salt to taste. But what you could do when the dish is finished just take a quick sample, and at that point you could always add more salt if you like to add more salt. All right, so that actually absorbed relatively quickly. Take another ladle spoonful, and you want to do 1 ladle spoon at a time. That's it. It's a slow release and a slow process, and you want to just continuously stir. So yes, you're going to be married to your stove for 20 minutes, and that's not a bad thing. And just stir that up, and in fact now time to put the heat down to medium. I had it on medium high all that time. I'm going to put it down to medium. And oh, by the way, in case you're wondering, the butter I used was salted butter. So again, when you're regulating your salt intake, you got to keep all those things in mind. So I am going to keep doing this for the next 20 minutes, and we'll come back at you once the risotto is done. But basically this is all I'm going to be doing for the next 20 minutes. Oh, and in case I forgot to mention it, of course, as you can see, my broth is hot. Your broth has to be hot. You don't want to add cold broth when you're cooking your risotto. You want to add hot broth so that it cooks nicely. So I just have my broth sitting on low, and I'll just keep it on low through the entire process. We're now approaching just over 25 minutes. So what I did was I sampled it at 20 minutes, and it wasn't quite done yet. So I let it go to 25. So it's been a good 25 minutes, and now we're ready to put this all together. And let me tell you, when I sampled it, it's already good to eat right now, but it's only going to get better. I'm going to add another 1.5 tablespoons of butter. That's going to add some extra creaminess. And I also have some Parmigiano Reggiano. You could also use pecorino if you want, but normally I would add a lot more cheese at this stage, but because it's a seafood risotto, I'm only going to add 1/3 cup of Parmigiano Reggiano, which of course I grated myself, as you probably would have guessed already. And now we're going to melt that butter in. You can see how it's nice and creamy. That butter, between the butter and the Parmigiano, has added a nice creamy kind of texture to our risotto. So now we're going to add back our shrimp and scallops, including all those nice juices that they released. We don't want any of that to go to waste. Scrape that all in there, all of it. There we go, all those nice juices. Oh boy, okay. I'm starting to get excited here. Okay, now what we got to do, basically you don't want to necessarily cook them because they're already cooked, but you want to bring them up to temperature. So what we're going to do here is just get them all coated with our risotto and bring them up to temperature. Might need to add a tad more, depending on the consistency of the risotto that you want. Just a little more broth. There we go. And we're going to let this cook for about a minute just to get those shrimps and scallops heated up. And of course, that's another reason why you don't want to overcook your shrimp and scallops in the beginning, because you want to give them another, minute or two at the end. So, oh boy, there we go. Let's shut that down. Shut the broth down. Now you see I have extra broth here left. You need at least 1.5 liters of broth. I had 2 liters, which I knew was going to be more than enough. Okay, so for this job, calls for a spatula because I don't want to leave not 1 ounce of that deliciousness. Oh yeah, that looks really, really good. And it smells amazing. Risotto needs to be eaten hot. Take it from the frying pan right to the table. So I'm going to call Laura up here because we've got ourselves a nice dinner. So for the taste test, I think I'll scoop up a scallop and a little bit of risotto. It's piping hot. Oh my goodness. The flavor is unbelievable. Yes, those little things that we did along the way make a big, big difference. This is absolutely delicious. I'm going to have a shrimp. What an unbelievable dish. Simple to do. We used basic ingredients. It came together quickly. You really need to give this recipe a try. Even if you have older adults, younger adults, children, no one's going to turn this down. Absolutely delicious. Thanks for tuning in. And until next time, of course, buon appetito. Dinner is served just for you. Look at this beautiful risotto. Look at that. Seafood risotto just for you. Okay. Shrimp and a scallop. Just give a little taste test first there. It's still hot. It's piping hot. So, yeah, I know. It's packed with flavor, eh?
It's delicious.
I know. Oh, don't worry. I'm sitting down. Trust me. Time for me to sit.